My photo taste is the Pinterest, because they are the best.
The literal meaning and the newspaper meaning, the one we're using in the newspapers, is to welcome with enthusiasm.
Yeah. Although,
Yeah.
people who love vinyl really love it. So
They do. Maybe they are hugging their vinyl.
It could be the case that they are actually hugging their vinyl.
Do you hug your vinyl?
I'm not a vinyl hugger. Okay, let's move on to our next expression.
Okay, so we're looking in the Sun now, and the headline is Record High Vinyl Sales Up by Over 50%. So, record high.
Record high, meaning highest amount reached. But this is an example of something very popular in headlines. It's a pun. What's a pun?
A pun, P-U-N. A pun is like a word play when you use one word with a literal meaning, or its number one meaning, its main meaning, and the record and the newspaper kind of uses it to comment on the actual story. So record here, record high, has two meanings. The record high means the maximum ever that something has happened or done for.
Yeah.
But also another word for these vinyl records are called records.
Records.
It's not another word, it's what they are, yeah.
Yeah.
So the double meaning of record, which is in the headline,
Yeah.
and it's a really nice, catchy way of writing a newspaper headline.
We've got another one, haven't we?
We have got another one, and we're now moving on to the Times, which tells us that vinyl keeps turning the tables with highest sales for 25 years.
So another pun there, turning the tables, maybe a more complicated, sophisticated pun, this one. Can you explain the double meaning here?
Okay, so the first and the main meaning of turning the tables that we use it is to go from a position of weakness to a position of strength. And a good example of this, I think you have one actually, a classic football match.
Yes, so let's think. I think the Liverpool European Cup final match in 2005.
Right, were you there?
No, I sound like an expert. I'm not even a Liverpool fan, but I just remember it. They were losing 3-0 at half-time.
Right.
And then slowly they got back into the game. There was a goal, and then two more, so it was an equaliser, and then a penalty shootout.
Wow.
And Liverpool ended up winning the game.
Right.
So the tables turned.
Yeah, okay, so from a position of weakness to a position of strength, turning the tables. And that's actually what's happened with vinyl sales. Vinyl sales were very weak. No one was buying vinyl. Now, it's increasing and increasing. People are starting to buy vinyl again.
Yeah.
So the tables have turned. But also, as you said at the beginning of the programme, when you put a record onto your record player, the sort of plate, the round plate that it sits on, is called a turntable.
Yep.
So there's a double meaning there. The actual turning the tables is when the record goes round and round on the record player.
Yep.
Because again, one of those nice things that the newspaper headlines love to do is puns and double meanings in the headlines.
Headline gold.
It is, for a headline writer, that is great.
Right then, well, before we recap, we, of course, have our Facebook challenge, and we've been talking about old music formats. I've got a picture here, which we put on our Facebook page. And the question is that we can, in this picture, we can see two old music formats, but what can't you see? Is it A, cassette tapes, B, mini discs, or C, vinyl records? Kind of response did we get?
We got quite a few people thinking that the answer was C, but that's not the correct answer. The thing that you can't see is B, mini discs. And Jose Carlos Navarro Munoz told us the mini disc is a disc-based data storage device offering a capacity of 80 minutes of digitized audio or 1 gigabyte of data. So well done, Jose Carlos, and also to Denis Erjan, reader, and everybody else who said answer B.
Okay. He sounds like an expert.
Yes, he does. Yes.
Right then, can you just recap the words we've been looking at today, please, Catherine?
Most certainly. We had tangible, something real that you can touch. We had embraced, which means welcomed with enthusiasm. Record high, which means the highest amount reached. And turning the tables, which means changing from a weaker position to a stronger one.
If you would like to test yourself on today's vocabulary, there's a quiz you can take on our website, bbclearningenglish.com, where you will also find all kinds of other videos and activities to help you improve your English. Thanks for joining us, and do join us again. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
News review from BBC Learning English. On BBC Learning English. Hello and welcome to News Review, the programme where we show you how to use the language from the latest news stories in your everyday English. Hi, I'm Neil. Joining me today is a very festive-looking Catherine.
Yes, well, Neil, it's our festive programme, so as you asked me to put a festive jumper on, I've got my festive jumper on.
You have, and so have I as well. What's our story then?
So the story is a security issue at an English turkey farm, and the farmer has brought in some very unusual security guards.
Unusual security guards at a turkey farm. Okay, let's find out more from this BBC News bulletin from the reporter Elizabeth Hodson.
The farm's been rearing turkeys since the 1950s and sells around 24,000 a year. The birds roam free outside, which has obvious benefits. But there is one big downside: predators, and foxes in particular. The farm's director, Tom Coppice, has come up with an unusual deterrent, as he told me during a visit to the farm in early November.
When we actually started using alpacas, we were getting hammered by the fox. We just moved the birds out to their rearing facilities, and we got fox in, and we lost over 100 in the first 1 week, and then we kept on losing birds.
So, an English turkey farm there, which has a problem with foxes killing turkeys. Turkeys are birds that are eaten for Christmas dinner all over the UK. So the security guard that the farmer brought in was alpacas. Now, alpacas are an animal that is native to South America. It looks a bit like a llama, and it's related to the camel family, in fact.
Yeah, and not the kind of thing you expect as a guard animal
Not
in this
in the
country.
UK, no. I think it's quite common in some countries, but in the UK, an alpaca guarding turkeys is something you don't see every day.
Okay, well, you've been looking through the news websites at this story, and what are the items of vocabulary that you've come up with?
Okay, so we have 3 items. The first one is standing guard. We have keeping watch and brainchild.
Standing guard, keeping watch, and brainchild. So standing guard, how's that appearing?
Okay, so if we look in the STV News, the headline is Alpacas Protecting 24,000 Christmas Turkeys from Killer Foxes. And in that story, the sentence is, a herd of alpacas are standing guard over 24,000 free-range turkeys.
Okay, so standing guard, protecting something to make sure it stays safe or doesn't escape. So when we think of standing guard, is it like at Buckingham Palace with in a uniform and a rifle?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the original meaning of guard is to protect something or someone from danger, and in an official military or police sense, if you stand guard, you stay in one position for a number of hours, protecting whoever you're protecting. Yeah.
But this is used in another sense, in a less literal sense.
I don't think you can force an alpaca to stand up straight in one position for 8 hours at a time. So it's used much more in a figurative sense. They are guarding these turkeys, but probably they're moving around, or they might be in a field next door. I don't know. But they're not standing upright with rifles.
No.
Yeah.
That would be strange.
It would.
Okay, and the preposition that goes with standing guard?
Okay, it's over. So they're standing guard over turkeys. When you add an object, use the preposition over.
Right, I've been standing guard.
My photo taste is the Pinterest because they are the best. Flick to link, a link to flick.
As an Arab female photographer, I've always found ample inspiration for my projects in personal experiences. The passion I developed for knowledge, which allow me to break barriers towards a better life, was the motivation for my projects. I read, I write. Pushed by my own experience, as I was not allowed initially to pursue my higher education, I decided to explore and document stories of other women who changed their lives through education, while exposing and questioning the barriers they face. I covered a range of topics that concerns women's education, keeping in mind the differences among Arab countries due to economical and social factors. These issues include female illiteracy, which is quite high in the region, educational reforms, programs for dropout students, and political activism among university students. As I started this work, it was not always easy to convince the women to participate. Only after explaining to them how their stories might influence other women's lives, how they would become role models for their own community, did some agree. Seeking a collaborative and reflexive approach, I asked them to write their own words and ideas on prints of their own images. Those images were then shared in some of their classrooms and worked to inspire and motivate other women going through similar educations and situation. Aisha, a teacher from Yemen, wrote, "I sought education in order to be independent and to not count on men with everything." One of my first subjects was Al-Saad from Egypt. When we first met, she was barely able to write her name. She was attending a 9-month literacy program run by a local NGO in the Cairo suburbs. Months later, she was joking that her husband had threatened to pull her out of the classes as he found out that his now literate wife was going through his phone text messages. Naughty Saad. Of course, that's not why Saad joined the program. I saw how she was longing to gain control over her simple daily routines, small details that we take for granted, from counting money at the market to helping her kids in homework. Despite her poverty and her community's mindset, which belittles women's education, Saad, along with her Egyptian classmate, was eager to learn how to read and write. In Tunisia, I met Asma, one of the 4 activist women I interviewed. The secular bioengineering student is quite active on social media. Regarding her country, which triggered what has been called the Arab Spring, she said, "I've always dreamt of discovering a new bacteria. Now, after the revolution, we have a new one every single day." Asma was referring to the rise of religious fundamentalism in the region, which is another obstacle to women in particular. Out of all the women I met, Faiza from Yemen affected me the most. Faiza was forced to drop out of school at the age of 8 when she was married. That marriage lasted for a year. At 14, she became the 3rd wife of a 60-year-old man. And by the time she was 18, she was a divorced mother of 3. Despite her poverty, despite her social status as a divorcee in an ultra-conservative society, and despite the opposition of her parents to her going back to school, Faiza knew that her only way to control her life was through education. She is now 26. She received a grant from a local NGO to fund for her business studies at the university. Her goal is to find a job, rent a place to live in, and bring her kids back with her. The Arab states are going through tremendous change, and the struggles women face are overwhelming. Just like the women I photographed, I had to overcome many barriers to becoming the photographer I am today. Many people along the way telling me what I can and cannot do. Saad, Asma, and Faiza, and many women across the Arab world show that it is possible to overcome barriers to education, which they know is the best means to a better future. And here I would like to end with a quote by Yasmin, one of the 4 activist women I interviewed in Tunisia. Yasmin wrote, "Question your convictions. Be who you want to be, not who they want you to be. Don't accept their enslavement, for your mother birthed you free." Thank you.
Flick to link, a link to flick. My photo taste is the Pinterest, because they are the best.